This video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. Get a whole month free at Mubi.com/Karsten. Hey buds, welcome back to another episode of What I Watched This Month, August edition. Busy month, I did a lot of traveling, but I still managed to watch some movies. I started the month by watching The Green Knight, just a little underground gem for you mainstream film folk. I wasn't able to get into The Green Knight hype, and then like a week before it came out, I got very randomly excited about this movie, and it lived up to my expectations. In fact, I actually think it surpassed them. See, I'm not the type to go nuts over the fantasy genre, mostly because it feels like, we've already seen it before. But that's the cool thing about The Green Knight. David Lowery brings this new style to the fantasy genre that feels so fresh and modern. That modern style is, I'm sure, what makes this kind of unbearable for a lot of people, but in my opinion, David Lowery's approach reads less like it's following a trend and instead using the advantages of contemporary filmmaking to make things even weirder. As far as the film's deeper themes go, I don't know if I'm the one to talk about them, because your boy just didn't get all of it. This does get into existential dread territory the same way A Ghost Story did, mostly in the final 10 minutes, but my interest in this comes less from trying to understand life and death and more from looking at a bunch of bald people in the fog and going, damn, that's fucking sick. And I watched Uncut Gems. I did just make a video about this, but I will say, fantastic movie. It is seriously amazing to me that a movie that can do the same trick over and over again can still come across just as thrilling on a fifth watch. Then I watched Icarus. I never actually knew what Icarus was about, despite hearing all the buzz about it a few years ago, which, let me just say, going in blind is hands down the best way to go into this movie. I love a documentary that can shapeshift when you least expect it and take the viewer down an entirely new rabbit hole without losing your interest, and that's exactly what Icarus does. Despite how crazy this story is, I feel like it's easy to mess this up and have this come across overly conspiratorial, but this instead feels both very gripping and emotionally compelling. I get why it's in there, but it could have done without all the 1984 references. It kind of just felt corny after a while. We get it. We live in a society. But still, it is a very entertaining documentary. You should watch it. Then I watched Stoker. I truly cannot emphasize how chaotic I find Park Chan-wook's editing. I know he's not the editor for his films, but the editing and everything I've seen from him makes me feel like I'm getting slapped in the face, but like in an enjoyable way. Stoker is no exception. For being a relatively easy story to understand, at least compared to his other movies, it still manages to make the whole thing feel delirious. I don't think it packs a punch the way those others do. I imagine studio constraints are to blame for why this feels held back, but it's still just so exciting. It's the kind of movie I'd be obsessed with if I had seen it as a teenager. Then I watched Annette, and my god. This is an understatement, but this movie is not for everyone. It's a musical about a comedian and an opera singer who have a baby, and I can't think of a weirder route for it to have taken. And yes, it's a mess structurally, but I think it works, and if I'm being honest, it's the first movie all year that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. This comparison has been made a lot already, but it reminds me of Tommy, the 1970s rock opera based on an album by The Who. The maximalist filmmaking is jarring and unnatural, but it lets the form come alive in a way few films allow. There's so much freedom at play here, but at the same time, it all feels as though it works under the same depressing, rainy aesthetic. It's a critique of the exploitation of children, the media, even comedy, and it's having so much fun with it. I will come clean. I don't think I'm smart enough to get the true meaning of this film yet. Maybe it's just about why stand-up comics shouldn't reproduce. But that's not to say it's incoherent or that I ever felt lost. It just means that I guess I'll have to watch it again if I have to. I guess at the end of the day, I've always wished for a modern film to not hold back at all and throw itself entirely at the wall. And Annette is that movie that I've been wishing for. So technically, I have to love it, and thank God I do. Then I rewatched Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I haven't seen this one since I was a kid, and oh boy is this pretty racist. Literally, when I was looking up where they filmed it, apparently they tried to shoot in one part of India and were denied access because the government deemed the script as too offensive. That's super unfortunate because every other part of this movie is really sick. Well, that's not entirely true. I think, and sorry if this is mean, I think Kate Capshaw delivers one of the worst performances I've seen in a Hollywood blockbuster. Like Tommy Wiseau level bad, but on a literal Steven Spielberg scale. Very fascinating thing to watch unfold. Anyway, the action in this is undeniably phenomenal. Spielberg clearly just knows exactly what he's doing at this point in his career, and no scene feels like it drags too long or too short. Even though I've seen this a gazillion times, that heart removal scene is still just as dark. I'm just like, this is a crazy movie, and I really don't think it's as bad as everyone claims it to be, besides the racism. That's Yeah, it's pretty bad. Then I watched Christopher Guest's Best in Show. Having seen almost every Christopher Guest mockumentary, I can in full confidence say this is probably the best one. I mean, come on, a dog show? That's perfect. This has easily the best characters, his best bits, and my god, Fred Willard is maybe the funniest person to ever do it. Fully deserves its title as one of the best comedies of all time. Then I rewatched Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. See, I watched this with my parents, and they spent almost the entire time roasting the movie, which, believe it or not, is just as fun as watching this in a theater full of old women. I refuse to understand why I love this movie so much. I fully understand that it's not good on so many different levels, but the fact that it doubles down on the stupidity of the first one just makes it so fun to me. Then I watched Ugetsu. A lot less fun than Mamma Mia, believe it or not. This is a movie about two men whose lives and wives are put at risk when they pursue their dreams of becoming a samurai and of becoming rich. I feel like movies that usually try to tell stories of greed end up waving a finger at the audience, but this was anything but. It felt both nuanced and properly haunting. It has all these ghostly elements that are actually scary for once. Like, I don't think ghosts are usually all that scary in film, but the sound design in this makes for a truly eerie experience. If any of that sounds like your thing, check this out. Then I watched Carnival of Seoul. This is a movie about a woman who gets in a very serious car accident and miraculously survives, only to find herself being haunted by a strange man. It is unbelievable. The cinematography of this film feels wildly ahead of its time, being so playful and effective with its horror. I don't want to spoil what this movie is about or what it's doing, because once it clicked for me, it felt really satisfying, and I don't want to ruin that. But my goodness, is it both a brilliant idea and a brilliant execution. There isn't really a flaw in this thing, in my opinion. It's a damn shame this is the only feature Herc Harvey ever made, and that's a crazy name, by the way, because he made a very uniquely terrifying horror movie that you should all check out. Then I watched Tam Popo. This is a movie literally entirely about ramen and the art of cooking, and it's one of the silliest movies I've ever seen. The main plot is about two truck drivers helping a store owner improve a ramen shop, but there are smaller stories interspersed throughout that are extremely well done. There's one about a woman touching a bunch of food in a store, a group of people sipping noodles too loudly, a man ordering something different from the rest of the group, and my personal favorite, a woman cooking her last meal for her family only to die seconds after finishing it. Each story has its own level of absurdity and something to say about both food and Japanese culture. It's just so fun and so warm, and no film has ever made me hungrier. Then I watched Ida. I was a huge fan of Cold War, and me and my cinematographer actually used stills from Ida as a reference for my one short film Rhubarb, but I never actually saw the movie before that, but having finally seen it, I can confirm that this is in my top 5 best shot films list. I don't think there's a single shot in here that isn't aesthetically stunning, tonally consistent, or meaningful. It is a masterclass in cinematography and direction, and I think the visuals alone deserve all the praise in the world. But I think the film works past that because of how these spacious shots coexist with the emptiness of the world these characters are living in. Despite paying heavy attention to their surroundings, the film is entirely about the people. They are what bring these spaces to life, despite the spaces feeling like they're sucking the life out of them. Everything is so bleak, and it's a very sad movie, but that's not to say there isn't something to feel for the viewer, because there's a whole lot of emotion being poured out in the performances. If you liked Cold War, you're guaranteed to like this. I also watched my own short film maybe 400 times while editing it, and you know what? That's what I watched this month. There's a few that I watched at the end of the month that, as always, will be touched on in the next month. But anyways, thanks for watching, and check out all these films and form your own opinion. You can actually check out Ida on Mubi, which happens to be this week's sponsor. Mubi is a curated streaming service, a place to watch beautiful, interesting, and incredible cinema. Every day, Mubi premieres a new film. From iconic directors to emerging auteurs, there's always something new to discover. With Mubi, each and every film is hand-selected. It's like your own personal film festival, streaming anytime, anywhere. Whenever I want to watch a movie, it's kind of overwhelming trying to find something to watch, and what I love about Mubi is that everything on their site was handpicked by their team of curators. If you're looking for films that maybe not everybody is talking about and you want to dive deeper into your love for cinema, I can't think of a better place to do so than Mubi. You can try Mubi free for 30 days at mubi.com/Karsten. That's mubi.com/Karsten for a whole month of great cinema for free.